Great. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our latest session of Bridging the Gap. We're so excited to have you here. We've had such a great turnout, and I don't know, each one gets me more and more excited. Everyone has been so talkative and participating in such a thoughtful and really lovely way. So we're so excited to welcome Aaron here today. Aaron is a senior design strategist at Taylor Design. He has over 10 years of experience in branding and identity, higher education, and social impact and community engagement. He's a designer, researcher, facilitator who leverages deep insight and collaboration to create value-driven visual and experiential systems. As a designer, he said that he values understanding and making, but not necessarily in that order. So please join me in welcoming Aaron, and we will hand it over to you now.
All right, thank you, Tess. Let's jump to the deck. Super excited to be here with you all today. We're going to be talking about system sketching. I think it's probably important to set a little context for why system sketching. I'll go a little bit deeper into the work that I do, but why am I trying to bring value to your day in talking about system sketching? I had been doing a bunch of work on conceptually rigorous projects, and I felt like, while the work was good, it wasn't as creative as I wanted it to be. I was feeling a little disconnected from myself as a designer, and I was becoming much more of an analyst. It's a constant tension I'm sure we're all going to face at various points with various things in our professional lives, but I needed to unstick myself. So as I often do, I grabbed a Sharpie and I grabbed a blank notebook and I started telling the stories of my work to myself with my hand again. This was taking place a couple months before Tess reached out, but that process of getting dirty again was super inspiring to me in my post MDes career thus far, short though it may be, but it's also something I've done over the course of my career, and it's great to have that permission. So we're going to go through a little bit of my work. We're going to talk about what system sketching is, and we're going to sketch some systems loosely. And if you're stuck, as someone was talking about earlier, this potentially could unstick you. No promises. All right, there we go. So yes, as Tess said, I'm a senior design strategist at Taylor Design. But enough about me. Let's do a little warm up, everyone. So I hope you have 2 pieces of paper because this is the first one. So I'm going to turn on a little music and you're just going to sketch out what brought you here today. I'm going to leave it at that. After a couple of minutes, I'd like you to take a photograph of that and make it your background of your Zoom window. And our subsystems will become a bigger system of what brought us here today. So I'm gonna try on some tunes and you all can just do your thing for a couple minutes and we'll see what we get. And if you have questions, feel free to bring them, but you got it. Money change.
Style of life, fast money, women, cars, and he liked to frequent bars, pubs, and disco. Made his living as a world famous rap star. When he first started, Mike respects what he was after. So he got inside his mind day and night, and he write constantly his art and craft he trying to master. Started winning local battles in his rap world. Gained his full reputation as the best pro. And what life would do to him, all the cards that was hard, pen and pad, stress relief would be his rap. Haters dudes doing shows, now he's on track. In the lab, pumping demos, making songs for that. Then he quit his 9 to 5, finally it's time to ride. When he signed a major label record His first single was an overnight success. Now we went from wearing rags to the best fit. success. All his new acquaintances cast his head, taking it to the point where he lost my perspective. Started cutting off the people he came up with. Ego blown like a solar been abducted. Though his heart was once real, now material was filled up his world and he couldn't get enough of it. Used to want to be the best of the rap gods. Now his only one concern is going platinum. And his skill is since decreased and the entered hunger ceased. Now content just as long as fame and cash come. He's a big Willie now, rapping about cars.
Do another minute of sketching and then we'll upload.
I mean, just a year ago, he was broke, bumming money, drinking out for 40 bottles, living outdoors.
All right, I'm gonna call it. I was keeping time, but it's not really that important. Let me do mine also. See if I can do this. All right. Choose virtual.
Sherman, is that us?
It is.
Oh my God. Wait. Oh my goodness. I'm pinning you. I love this.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so great.
Yes. This is
Oh,
perfect.
this is so fun.
Yeah, I love the.
My hair right. I mean,
I tried.
So good. Oh, Hardix is so good.
Yeah, that's nice. Hey, everyone, I think this is working. This is going to be pretty tight once we have this like grid of the meta system. I'm into it.
Sorry, how do I change my virtual background?
On the little camera icon down on the bottom, mine says stop video. There's like a little carrot shooting up. In there is a sub menu. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice.
Ooh, Sonnery, I like yours.
Hmm.
Slump.
Lot of slump.
A lot of slump.
All right, let's give it like 20 more seconds and then we're gonna just keep moving. These are super cool. I'm really appreciating your effort and your different perspectives. Yeah, so that's so cool. So some people are thinking about, I mean, no surprise it was intended to be a prompt open to interpretation. Shervin's, yours is very different than Tessa's and mine is very different than Hardix, and that's cool. I don't know. I had Jorge for my systems class. I mean, I know systems class in general could be kind of like a mind whoops, right? But it's nice to see that we're all kind of contemplating how we might articulate what seems like a simple question in different ways. So let me talk about my work and we'll talk about how do I make decisions about what to interpret and why. Let's go back to screen share. So thanks everyone, that was cool. All right, so today we will do a couple things. I'll give you a little background about myself. We can talk about what we are doing today and why does it matter. And I'll share some examples from my work, from my sketchbook. And then we're gonna get messy on our own kind of larger exercise, which hopefully is fun and loose. All right. So as I said before, I'm a design strategist at Taylor Design. Taylor is an architecture and design strategy firm. A lot of my colleagues and classmates work at tech, and I know that you have had some great workshops hosted by folks who work in large technology companies, specifically about the experience and challenges and opportunities of working in those environments. I super duper do not work in those environments. I work in an 80-person architecture firm that specializes in healthcare and really complex spaces. And my job is to understand human and systems need within that and make sure we are delivering in the built environment. So within that, I work on a whole range of projects. These are just the ones that felt photogenic, but the top is a hyper, how do I explain it? It's a laboratory that uses laser microscopes to look at super, super small things. And the conditions through which that occurs mean that the room is super isolated seismically and environmentally. So there are very tight constraints on what you can design. With that being said, how do we keep the scientists happy? How do we keep them engaged? How do we make sure that they are retaining talent? How do we make sure that they're pulling in the best talent? How are we leveraging the built environment to advance their goals well beyond the kind of structure of their space as it's ordered? Bottom left is a medical office building in the desert outside of Los Angeles. We do ground up hospitals, big projects on hospitals, and the complexity within that is staggering. So there's kind of two roles in that type of work. One is about making sure these really complex project teams are working together. So a lot of that is facilitation and design of experience for your team. And then there's advocating for the client and the end users down the road. So you're looking kind of inward on the project, and then you're looking outward at the users at the end of the project. The third example is this individual hooked up to a apheresis machine. So it takes your blood out, mixes stuff into it, and puts your blood back in. An example of work I do is a hematology and bone marrow transplant clinic needs to expand their footprint by 50%. We know that there are treatments coming down the line that may totally change the way in which they deliver medicine, but they're going to spend a couple $1 million to deal with the next 5 years. How do we set them up so that they are able to provide the services needed now and flex into this unknown future? So if the stakes are pretty high, if this treatment hits and it works, they need to be able to deliver it high volume right away. So these are some of the things that I'm thinking about in my professional role, a little context. So today we are going to talk about system sketching, as it kind of might have parsed from what I was talking about earlier. A lot of what I think about are systems, the interconnectivity of people, process, things in flow, right? What I want for you all is to trust in your process and do it, and just be generative and loose. It's not about creating beautiful systems flows that go into a slide deck that you show your client. It's for you to make sense of the chaos so you can make good decisions. And within making sense of that chaos, you are able to advocate for your position really well. So your ideas rise to the top and your value rises to the top, and you really kick ass at your job because people get excited about the work that you do. We as designers do this in 3 ways. We talk, so we facilitate, we do what I'm doing. We are prototypers, we are makers. In one form or another, we are doing it, and we show. So we're telling stories through our decks, through our renderings. You know, if it's little sliders, right? Some of us are more talented at one and less talented at the other. You know, the unicorn designer is like the apex predator, and they sit at all top, but they probably have like weird emotional hangups and they're not that great. But we all sit all over the place. The doing part, which is nice, is that the barrier to entry is really low. If you're by yourself, or excuse me, the showing, the visual, right? And it's prototyping, I guess. You know, the real point here is that the barrier to entry in sketching and prototyping is really low, and If it's really about conveying ideas, you just need to test and try it out and you'll get better at it. Yes. So where do we use system sketching? That's a good question. We use it all over, right? It is not a tool that lives at one point in the double diamond. I hope you are familiar with this project delivery framework, expansion and contraction, openness to new ideas, and you get to a stopping point and you bring it back in. So let me give some examples from my work. One is about designing for shared understanding. So we were approached by a client and they said, we worked with you in the past, or someone we knew who now works at this company said, I've worked with you in the past, I'm going to a new company, help me figure out what questions I need to ask to get you work. It's a weird prompt from a client, but it's a great, like, ooh, there's work to be had. So the task was then to like figure out who they are and use that process of figuring out who they are to figure out what questions we might have. This is publicly available information, but I want to make sure that I'm being respectful of our client. So we have Beige Health. And Beige Health is a holding company, which is owned by two healthcare systems, Green Health and Purple Health, right? Those two founded Beige Health in order to provide for delivery sites, to provide for information technology, digital solutions, and joint ventures, which could be acquisitions, could be partnerships with other companies, in service of a patient-centered organization called Magenta Health. So we were approached by Beige Health to help them figure something out. Beige Health is not an island, right? Beige Health is part of a system, but that system gets even more rich because Magenta Health, which is their organization that they work in service for, is administered also by the blue doctors group, the pink physicians group, and the yellow doctors group. Now, blue, pink, yellow, purple, green all work together to deliver care to patients at Magenta Health. Green and purple own Beige to support Magenta Health in addition to delivering care. So it's a system, right? I was hoping to throw some of my actual sketches on today, but the names of these organizations are all over them and it was really not conducive for me to like cross them all out, but trust that it took a long time to get to this point. Now this is still kind of a rough and ready sketch, but this was totally ready for me to push out to my team internally and say, like these blue, pink, and yellow doctors are providing healthcare all over a certain region. How does the Beige healthcare leadership consider geographic competition when they're thinking about new facilities, right? How do we ask questions that show that we understand this system as it relates to a business model, but also about patient care? This was super helpful for us. I think this, without the color overs, did get sent to a client and they were like, okay, yeah, great. Give them the confidence that we understand them. Yes, it's sketchy. It's brought up to a certain level to be shared, but this didn't need to go into a deck necessarily. So this is an example of kind of understanding at the beginning of a project to say like, okay, I've kind of captured the system. Let's validate that and make sure it's right. A little further down the line, you may need to sell a concept, right? So you've gone wide and you've started to figure out what it needs to be. And now you're trying to put those ideas in front of decision makers and say like, okay, let's do this. Perhaps it's a product. That product lives in a system and you being able to articulate that broader system is vital. For me, oftentimes the system is the thing. So this is an example of that. An organization we were working for was looking for an innovation funnel. Like how do they take big floating ideas and turn them into products or actions or deliverables? I had an idea for that, but I needed to get the idea validated before I got some sort of like sexy rendering validated. So it's a bunch of ideas, right? Where this is formatted because there will be a reveal, but these are just notes on the page, right? We need to capture some intent. We need to prioritize and then discuss. We will design and we'll do the work based on the design, and then we'll get it out there and get feedback. There's already a flow there, but mostly because I've assembled it. If we think about how we speak, how are we kind of like turning those into bite-sized nuggets? Especially if they can be alliterative, right? Dream, distill, design, do, deliver. So that's my pitch for this innovation funnel, right? And then I can layer on a little bit of iconography. And the iconography is the thing that's going to catch your eye. And if you're able to assign appropriate iconography to your ideas, you can tell that story without the language needing to be there. And therein lies the power of systems sketching, right? It's really about saying, how am I user-centered in the way that I am communicating a complex system, such that my words and the way in which I choose my words isn't the thing driving the message. What's driving the message is some kind of universal visual touch points that tell that story, right? We go from an idea cloud into some sort of prioritization, and then some sort of conflict around that prioritization and figuring out what to do. But that then goes into some sort of ordered structure. I see the outline of a calendar, maybe some process. We move on to some sort of schedule or calendaring, some sort of like metronome for delivery, and then we launch. This one is really rough, but it did the trick, right? I could share this with my boss and say, here's what I'm thinking. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I like that. Let's move that forward. Or, what about this? And then it just gets stronger, right? So it's doing its job of just communicating enough to move forward. But you're not spending a lot of time making it really clean and sexy in Illustrator or whatever.
Aaron,
Yeah.
there's a question.
Okay, what's up?
I have a question. So when you are selling your concept, how do you communicate this system map with like non-designers? Because I found that not everyone can read a system map, and sometimes they find it really confusing, like because like everything is on there and they're all interconnected.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, that's a great question. I think to my point of lean into yourself as a designer. So that's a great, how might we create a systems map that articulates our intent to non-designers? The way that immediately I would think about doing that is being really clear about your usage of arrows and directionality. What I mentioned before was about kind of being, you're really curating your icons so they are communicating something universal to the best of your ability, and being able to like get rid of an idea, nothing sacred if it's not working. But if you're able to take those ideas and put them into like individual icons and then assemble those icons in a way that tells a clear story, which I think some of your backgrounds are doing really well, you start to get there. That's where my gut goes on that answer. I don't know. I mean, I think if we were to like sit down on a whiteboard and like riff and try to make like the most clear information, something super complex, and we're simply trying to make it clear for someone who has no idea what it is, you'll get there. You just need to constantly ask yourself, like, is this simple? Is this clear enough? So is that helpful?
Yeah, thank you. What I found very helpful is that to have everyone sit down and you kind of just map out the system that you had in your mind and narrate as you draw on a whiteboard or a paper. Yeah.
No, that's great. Yeah, of course. I think you're generally going to find stronger results when you're able to work in that collaborative manner, and you're just getting the stuff out quickly and going. Sometimes you can do that. Sometimes it's about heads down individual work. Yeah. But I think what you're really talking about is you're just testing all the time, right? You're always trying to receive that feedback so you get closer to the right answer sooner. Always, super duper, always do that. That's a really good point. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Now the third kind of rough and ready example I want to talk about is when you're communicating experience concepts, or you're just communicating like the outcomes of your work, right? So we were doing some assessment of a facility that we had designed previously, and we were trying to communicate design learnings. Now, usually we would have photographic imagery to support it, but this took place during the pandemic, so we weren't able to get out there. So what I tasked myself with doing was kind of creating some of these universal icons to help tell the story in a way that makes the content more engaging, so people will get eyes on your document. So one of our learnings was about supporting diverse emotional states. being able to design for unexpected problems, facilitating remote interviews, defining shared language, keeping moving, pretty simple one, and then that good things happen when people are together, right? Now, if I were to present these as a checklist, it probably wouldn't be particularly engaging, but when you're presented with kind of thumbnails that have some personality and some energy and some motion to them, they can stand in and tell a lot of the story. So these don't live in a system necessarily, but these are an example of how really quick thumbnail sketches can do a lot of heavy lifting for you when you're just trying to talk about something that otherwise might be kind of dense. Okay, so those three are just kind of quick examples of how I employ sketching and system sketching in my role. I would like us to get a little messy right now with this workshop. You're going to be presented with a big, thick chunk of content, and your responsibility is to go through that and figure out what are the important things to stick into a systems map. How might I draw them simply and allow them to stand on their own? And how do I assemble them so that somebody who may not know what I'm talking about can step back and gain some clarity about what was accomplished and what needs to be accomplished. Today, for this exercise, success is putting your pen to paper, being brave, applying your design skills, moving quickly, owning your decisions and not overthinking. We're not going to be in dialogue about what we're trying to do as we do it. So ask yourself that question and just keep rapidly iterating. We'll have 10 minutes to start with. If people feel like they'd like more time to put something together, by all means, we can allow that. Once we come to the end of this, I know that Tess and Perva were hoping that we could upload this to a Figma board and look at them as a whole, and we can kind of dip in and out of some. And for those who want to share what they're thinking, absolutely. And for those who are a bit modest about sharing what they're thinking, I'll probably be asking that you participate as well. Because I think the idea here is just to get your hands dirty, have a space where you're looking at something complex and you're just making it happen. Okay, great. So, surprise, surprise, you're a design strategist working with a client, and they're seeking a strategy for returning their workforce to the office. So one Friday, everybody left to go home for the weekend, and they haven't been back for 7 months, and the world has totally changed. For this project, you conducted comprehensive research on best practices for COVID safety in the workplace. You have reviewed opportunities for supporting technology, hardware and software. You've unpacked HR policies and conducted comprehensive staff-wide research, which included mind maps and remote interviews. Based on your findings, you feel confident about a path forward for the client that is guided by 4 design principles. 1 is an ability to ease into phased reopening. The second is to ensure designs that can flex between healthy and risk state. The third, enact new policies that allow for flexible work from home. And 4, create an office that supports the 3 C's: collaboration, concentration, and community. So this is a big, thick chunk of text. Untangle this and make this visual and beautiful and helpful. I'm gonna start a timer for 10 minutes. I'm gonna turn some music on. Be loose, have fun, get loose, walk around, stand up, do whatever you gotta do. Yeah, you got this. Have fun, everyone.
Corva, do you want to throw the Figma link in the chat? And when people are, we'll give a warning, but when everyone's ready, perfect. You guys want to open that up?
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Son, giving son, living one day at a time. Gotta rhyme with, but when it comes, he is at a climb. Satellite drifting to the unseen patterns of the magic eye. Listeners will succumb. Feel the sunshine beaming through the drum line. Newer life, it will reanimate a dumb mind. They used to bowl for Callum by they uptight. Behold the rhythm, see out of the dark it come light. They used some fun. Get rid of it and run to the sun giver. Sun giver. Sun giver. Sun giver. Sun giver, giving light, living life, make it brighter when it's dark. Put these rhymes inside your life. Shine like a bright light, shine in the light, mightier than high tides, rising to new heights. Striking like a light, lightning bolt, life it might strike. Honest pain and struggle, hustle, work it out and fight. Paint a picture on the canvas, make it something nice. Right through any obstacle, this evening is a fight night. Bright lights, big city night, hype type, passage right, master smashing through, put on your hazard lights. Light every thought you feeling in this world is all inside. Every moment you gotta be reborn as you die. God, son, give a tongue, here to listen to the drum. If you got a little rhythm, you can step out of the slums with me. Come get this name out if you're living under slum clouds. Son, if what you're living isn't fun, please get rid of it and run to the sun giver. The sun giver. The sun giver. The sun giver. First crime I would commit, it was a misdemeanor. No loot on me, so I had gaffle step in the arena. Musically, I fell in a trance, I caught up X2C. He said, is this as fresh to you as this is fresh to me, bro? Then album by album, I get CDs and get some research. Consistency, essential beats and rhymes, this shit was ether. Went from them battle rhymes to trying to make a dope LP. Thanks for the inspiration, those departed, rest in peace. For the love of the game, inspired by the pioneers who set it up in the game. More inspired by other creative forces and rain. Upon the globe and save the day. Inspired by the culture way before we all could get paid. Inspired by the greats who made the classic music we play. Inspired by the fans who came to see the music displayed. It's time for Pearl and dance. I never knew a singer could be like the truth, a grounding spirit to the truth. Every lyric, ritual, a tribute to a mystic move. The first time I listened to it, I was so hot, but not on time. It was like I was speaking to it on my job, like it was a day off from the natural mystic in the air that left the sheriff lost in the essence. No question, the timelessness lives on. Thank you for the inspiration. We forever jamming on too. Inspired by the what you doing for the love of the game. Inspired by the pioneers who set it up in the game. More inspired by other creative forces and rain upon the globe and save the day. Inspired by the culture way before we all could get paid. Inspired by the greats who made the classic music we play. Inspired by the fans who came to see the music displayed. It's time to Pearl and dance. It's Black singing, thank you for the inspiration. It's because of all of y'all, we doing more than just the day jobs. Yeah, this took a while, we thank you for your patience. Every time that life is sucking, you remind and motivate us that this is for a purpose. So after drinks are purchased and all the bubbles fizz away, the cream will always surface. Thank you for your inspiration. Until further indication, we keep murdering the fake until it's done and over. Now it's right by you. Hey, tell me, Brother Brad. Just want to let you know, man, I'm feeling that music flowing out there. You know, our parents raised us up to be communicators, man. To pass the message on. Feeling you out here in PAC, man. Much love. Peace.
This is our destination. We're all in zero.
I remember when we always geeked, hit the button, press play, and hear all the beats. Every passerby stopped so they all could see the fulfillment and the fruition of all the dreams. Back then, it was so much fun. So many laughs, so much ganja, so much rum. Fresh out the be with plans to get so much done. Living in the college town with so much young enthusiasm, everybody focused to win. Where I was from, everyone was smoking the grand. It's new, heavy struggle never ended, it seemed. Till I woke up to the fact that I was living my dream. Now I'm going everywhere, London, Rome, and Japan. I quit my day job, I'm in the slice of the American dream. Now life is feeling better than I thought it ever could be. I think I'll go with this. Looking back, some will climb. The future's unknown, but the twisted time will come here in lessons and gifts combined. In the mental hiding, begin to find it. Looking back, some will climb. No one's a mistake that is not a lie. And life can be great when you hit your stride. It's the blissful ride of the twisted out on turn on the TV on the bus to do a song on MTV, getting an interview from Lou and Lala. The crowds are static when we on the stage doing our job. We winning now, we doing it. It's time that we go all out. Rocking a stage show with other come in. And the first time in my life, loaning money to fam. Cool expansion out the woodworks, people coming to jam. Accolades from my heroes, damn, how cunning is that? Vacations out relaxing, places living in laughing, steady spending the cash and maybe living in excess. Really, I'm feeling blessed and very limited dress, but didn't consider hearing from the eye. Or looking back, some climb. It's unknown, but the twisted time will come here in lessons and gifts combined. In the mental hiding, begin to find it. Looking back, some will climb. No one's a mistake that is not a lie. And life can be great when you hit your stride. It's the blissful ride of the twisted time. And now the world is very different. It's blood when you start to see your young relatives slipping. I blew a lot of dough, but now I'm grown, so hey, let's get it. I'm pampered with my health, but now I'm working on redemption. Songs in the key of time as it keeps twisting. It's a roller coaster ride, so hop on before you miss it. And it feels good to be healthy, grown, and so gifted. Time will move it, going with it. Music flowing so infinite. Looking back, some will climb. The future's unknown, but the twisted time will come here in lessons and gifts combined. In the mental hiding, begin to find it. Looking back, some will climb. No one's a mistake that is not a lie. And life can be great when you hit your stride. It's the blissful ride of the twisted time.
How's everyone doing? I think it's been a little bit over 8 minutes. Would we like to keep the prompt up, or should we move over to the Figma board? You can wrap up and we can start to populate something in real time.
I actually think I need a few more minutes, but and it's a bit late to ask, but when you say designs can, yeah, thanks. When you say designs can flex between healthy and risk state, I mean, I've read it, like what we're proposing. Can you actually just clarify that? Sorry.
Sure, yeah. We are seeing right now that there are kind of different modes of being in space together. There's like 6 foot separation, there's the social distancing, and there's kind of extreme, but it may not in fact be social distancing in the future. It's those words are chosen kind of like purposefully to be grainy because we don't know what the next thing is going to be, but we've come to realize that we need to be able to flex flex rooms into some sort of unknown capacity, right? And then there's like a healthy, like, we're not stressed about that. So yeah.
Okay.
But I appreciate the request for clarification. I'll give you all 5 more minutes, and then at that point, Tess or Purva, one of you let me know, take control. Let's go to Figma. Everyone can keep finishing up if we need more time, but we'll take the prompt off. So I'll turn some more music on.
That's good.
Awesome.
Group, we gon' make this shit happen right here, right now. Calling out to all area group, we gon' make this shit happen right here, right now. Calling out to all area group, we gon' make this shit happen right here, right now. Calling out to all area group, we gon' make this shit happen right here, right now. I wanna welcome y'all to house of who the hell he is. And it's cool to drop to make it to my new meeting. So take your time, grab a table, we got moves seated. Now when I be introduce me to my new people. See, my name is Lyrics More, baby, and I truly mean it. From the past, from the future, from the new and recent. You don't believe it, you can read it, page 1, and you leaflet L-Y-R-C is more feeling for, baby. I'm a echelon of MCing, and I think on that topic, we gon' live and breathing. I'm never running from a challenge, never been cheapest. In the rap hall of fame, we got to get me in. You got to send me to my thing, son, I'm too fiendish. Playing tune after tune till the womb deepen. I have a room of human beings feeling woozy like a fiend leading. Moving to the music in the fever screaming, baby. Calling out to all area group, we gon' make this shit happen right here, right now. Calling out to all area group, we gon' make this shit happen right here, right now. Calling out to all area group, we gon' make this shit happen right here, right now. Calling out to all area group, we gon' make this shit happen right here, right now. My life's a culmination of my past achievements, with a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of deep breathing, a lot of courage, a lot of doubts, a lot of mixed feelings, a lot of love, a lot of luggage for a lot of reasons. I ain't forgot about the pain and all the mistreatment. I ain't forgot the little wax they try to wiggle me in. I ain't forgot about the flower deep underneath the crowded streets, sprouting in between the cracks, seem to chop, baby. Funnel like a lion in the Coliseum, and you can positive I think I'm in the mausoleum. You think I'll ever hang it up on money? Stop dreaming. You think I'll ever stop? Oh, baby, now you're reaching. I won't stop till I feel my lungs stop breathing. I won't stop till I feel my heart stop beating. I won't stop speaking this week and next week and all false. Keep singing, I don't stop singing. Fire freezing, ice heating, fire palm treating, all bad fall free, clear from the mountaintop screaming, baby. Calling out to all area group, we gon' make this shit happen right here, right now. Calling out to all area group, we gon' make this shit happen right here, right now. I said, calling out to all area group, we gon' make this shit happen right here, right now. Calling out to all area group, we gon' make this shit happen right here, right now. Let's start the show. Get it on, we about to get it on, getting it on and on. Don't worry about the president. I said get it on, we about to get it on, getting it on and on. Calling out to all area group, we gon' make this shit happen right here, right now. Well, you don't know, Akioto.
Change the music up.
Oh, joys are as the sun has come again to hold you, sailing out the doldrums of the wind. The polyphonic prayer is here, it's all around you. It's all around you. I'm here. And if the whole world is crashing down, all through space out of mind.
All right. All seed controlled. We can move over to the Figma board, and in maybe another minute or two, we can start looking at stuff. These are looking awesome. All right, let's call this a stopping point, just so people can put what they have up. Don't worry if it's the most perfect execution of all of your design intent in the whole world. These are looking great. Interesting. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, let's just talk about what we're seeing. Hold on. Purva, will you zoom out a little? Thanks. There's third row, second column with this, yeah, you see it. What's really nice here, and I gotta say, is the sticking a big color block with your title dead in the center makes it very clear what you want to talk about. I think that's really successful. I don't always do this. Hey, maybe I'm going to be picking up some good pointers from everyone else. Maybe I'll just use this to like bolster my process. This is really nice. This is really clean. After reviewing, yeah, I think this is really successful. I think I might have some questions about some of the icons, but I get it. I think this is really nice. It's very different than what I sketched out or what I started to just doodle, but I think that's the beauty. Let me toss it to all you MDesers. Does anybody have a question about this? Does anybody want to just throw some snaps out there and say good job? Or in a really constructive way, does anybody say, I think maybe the like flex hybrid, it looks like it's a car. Maybe I might question that icon. Does anybody else have a thought about how that might be more successful? But otherwise, primo, this is cool.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. So I think that was the one icon that even I wasn't sure of.
Yeah.
I just did something because it kind of denoted hybrid, but yeah, not a fan of that icon myself.
Yeah, it's interesting. Hybrid is tough. Even for flex, I was like, yeah, that hybrid work home, the relation, it ends up because it's relational. It's two things that might in of themselves be individual icons, and what you're in fact trying to communicate is the transitive nature between the two.
Yeah.
Right. So you might even need to dig deeper into, you're just really focusing on how to articulate something that is flexible between two things that are fixed, and those fixed things might be like known icons.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
yeah.
this is nice. Can we go to Wilson's, the black one, the one right next to it? Yeah, interesting. First of all, why is this black? What are you working on? How is this done?
I drew it on iPad, so it's in dark mode, so it's in black.
Yeah. It's cool. It's cool. It feels really loose and sketchy. When we zoom out, it doesn't read as well, but I don't know if that's really a problem. This is interesting. So I think what's nice here is that there's like a thickness to what you're showing. You are still showing a lot of information. It stands a pretty stark contrast to the one that came to the left of it, but it invites you to dig really deep, which is a good tool, right? If you're really trying to communicate a lot of complex information, you need to invite people to step into your work with you. I don't know that I'm going to like dig in at such a deep level now, but I think you're starting to play with some of the icons. This lever between health and risk is successful, right? I think that actually is a great way of making manifest uneasy different states, right? So I might say like lean into that more, take the depth of this, and then pepper in some more of these kind of pure icons, which start to like chunk out the story in a way that allows it to be told quickly, and then people can dip in even more. Yeah, like this, like, is this person thinking with their tongue out? What's going on with your little person in the thought cloud?
I also like the phases.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same. I think the most genius part about this is like the arrow progression and the divide about home office, because that can be hard to communicate that hybrid visually. And I look at this and instantly I'm like, great, big chunk is half and half, then we go full office. Like I don't need to even like, if that's all you take away, you've accomplished that. And then if I wanted to spend more time with your story, I can look at the breakdown. But the fact that I can get that instantly is like really impressive.
That's good. I gotta be honest. I think home and at home, at office as as information types got a bit lost for me. I maybe would have hoped that they'd be a little more kind of centered in those discrete parts of that split, so we can own that it's home and own that it's right. So I can start there and then move through. I was really intrigued, and I saw the progressive nature of it. So I think there's a bit more hybridization of like icon with some more of this kind of like traditional infographic presentation, but this is really nice. And I think it does present, it becomes a tool unto itself, because we could then go and place kind of discrete actions on your progressive timeline in a way that lets us use it moving forward, right? So there's another benefit of this is like if your artifact is it's got flexibility and you can go and kind of layer onto it into the future, you've created something that like helps progress the idea. Let's zoom out. Let me see. I'll choose one more and then we might. All right, top, second over. Yeah, that one. Interesting. So we have this. Yeah, nice. Interesting. Okay, I want to know what the. Shervin, what is the one on the bottom right? It's collaboration, concentration, and community.
Yeah. So midway, when I was drawing the sort of balance between work from home and work in the office, which is the third one down, I was like, how do I draw an office? And I was like, oh,
yeah,
buildings, skyscrapers. I mean, that's kind of a cliche thing, and offices don't always really look like that anymore, but that's kind of what we think of, and homes don't always look like that anymore. But
yeah.
These are just sort of like images that. So I kind of took that window motif to show like an office, but not really sure how that works.
It's great, and I think what you're talking about is something that's really important. Is that especially in sketching, when the purpose is to communicate an idea, there's kind of two ways to do it. I mean, there's any number of ways to do it, right? I don't want to say there's two, but you can sketch for yourself where you are working through an idea. But when you get to the point where you are sketching in an effort to communicate the idea, it's probably less important that you are satisfied with the like complexity of how you're demonstrating an idea, and more important that you're just demonstrating the idea, right? So like, yes, the office motif might be a little like quote unquote tired, and we're thinking about like, oh, it's a rehabilitated sewing factory, and it actually has like beautiful sun. Like the skyscraper is a great way to get that across. I think your kind of mix of home and office building as a representation of like those two are together is really good. I think you then have created a set of like iconographic symbols that you could pull apart and deploy in different places, right? So there's something really nice about like repeating these tools so you can tell different parts of the story. You could even talk about that relationship like we were talking about before, like tension or balance between the two. Maybe we go back and use that kind of lever as a way of thinking about what is the balance between office and home. So you're starting to like deploy, you're building a kit of parts. And especially as we think of like ourselves as for those of you who are going to be screen-based designers, you are also starting to kind of create a body of icons, a body of thumbnails that you will move up the food chain, right? And if you're within a design system, I'm sure your mind will go there because everybody around the table is going to be really familiar with what you're sketching out. So this is nice. This is obviously like a little bit more thin than the others, but I think it's important to dive into it. And I think it's the moves that you made are strong, right? And they can start to be assembled into a really comprehensive story. All right, is there anybody who wants to talk about theirs? Is that like excited to, or not even talk about it yet, but we can just take a look at it and then just say me. All right, you doing this, Perva? All right, Ashley's? I have to guess because you're not talking to me.
I was on mute, sorry, there's just so much noise here. But yeah, I loved Ashley's. I really wanted to dig in deeper into that one.
Great, let's take a look. Yeah, awesome. Back to the office. Yeah, how to. Yeah, you're phased. The stair step is about as simple as we've seen, and there's an inherently success in that, right? I do understand it. Collaboration. It's good. I wonder if the next round of prompt was like you had to strip away half of the words how would you layer on another round of symbols to tell the story for you? Because there's an energy to it, and I'd say lean into that more. I do like your little happy person or person on fire. I'm not quite sure on top, but I think like
the hair is just sticking up into the sky because they're just so
great.
excited.
That's awesome. Thank you. I like the on fire too, but there's something fun about that, right? I think also just it's a sketch and you're doodling and you're also just kind of like moving your hand freely. Evidencing those kind of artifacts is great, right? And it shows like the potential for that kind of looseness elsewhere. Is there anything you want to say about yours or questions you have?
Not really. I mean, I tend to add a lot of text to everything.
Yeah.
So I was running out of space. I was like, let me just take out my pen so I could fit more information in a smaller space.
Right.
So I could also think about in the future, like how I would validate these steps in a more visual way. Because I want to show like, these are the quotes that we got, or this is like showing that we looked into your HR policies. Maybe I could find a more visual way.
Yeah. What if, not this time, but what if the challenge was you have to tell the story and you're not allowed to use any language? You start there, and then maybe that should have been in the prompts, right? And then we could go back and layer the language on to really be targeted about what additional content we're kind of building. But that's nice though, and I appreciate the like kind of thinking about how you might flex it in the future. All right, Hardik, this one's cool.
Yeah, Hardik does that. He always just uses imagery and no text at all. So I thought I could focus on this one next.
Yep. Interesting.
Yeah, this is just about like making all of the ideas that we would have, the company would have for alluring people to come back to work. Like, so if I want to go from like top left to bottom right, so it's like only 1/3 of the people would be allowed in the office. Stand-up meet would be socially distanced, and you can reserve the common spaces for when they are available. And we are also going to have happy hours online, so that there's a more sense of community than just working on Zoom. Everything is going to be disinfected, and there's going to be masks all around. We're going to develop technology that can encourage more collaborative spaces. And when things go rough, if you do step up to protect the community, protect your colleagues, you will be awarded something like a COVID savior badge, or I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, cool. Well, I really like that you're actually using the sketch as a place to iterate and kind of think through future ideas. So you've kind of hacked the exercise in a really nice way. I wonder, it's really interesting, a study of contrasts. Yours is all icons, right? And Ashley's was like limited icons. Ashley's was really like sequenced in a really clear way. Yours is not sequenced in a really nice way, but it's not sequenced, right? And if I were to look at this and if I were trying to make sense beyond just the like information reading style, top left to bottom right, I would say that we're really kind of focusing on this like screen state that wipes. And my mind would say that perhaps that's the most important within a hierarchy that you are providing based on the design decisions that you have made. My eye goes there, but it's not an easy gimme of just like, oh, you're definitely going there. That's fine. But I wonder if we were to smash these two together, if we would get like a really like great gestural story that starts here and ends here, and we can use that to make decisions. Because I don't know, I think this is a great way of like building the excitement for it. But I would say like, okay, what do I do with this? And that's an element of the system sketching that creates a lot of power, because you are then able to say, and this is not just telling you what it is, but it's also giving you a roadmap for the future. And that roadmap is what I'm particularly interested in, because I want a lot of work in that roadmap, right? But great work. And obviously you've got a great hand, so lean into that, as it seems that you do, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. This is cool. All right, let's go to this one. Sorry. Zoom in again. Yeah, that one was nice. Yeah. Rajat. Yeah. This is really interesting. I just did a mind map exercise with a bunch of my colleagues, and there was one that looked almost exactly like this. So I wonder if there's like some sort of mental model at play.
So over here, I'm just playing with the variables that like we have different phases, we have different level of, health risk. I was just thinking that what are the variables I have to, think about. So I was in phase 1 of thinking. So that's why I was just playing with, okay, I have to make a health monitoring system where I have the data, like what's going on over there, different phases. What's the level, how many people are actually getting infected, are actually healthy or not, how to have that variable, and then how we can manage everything along with the amount of work from home people are doing. So I was just in the phase 1. So but my next step would have been to reiterate it in a way that looks sequential and what could the plan look like. So this was like just thinking about it.
You're the first person who's made this a loop. And I think that is inherently baked into the exercise, but it isn't super clear, especially as we inherent in understanding like a flex between like a healthy state and an unhealthy state with a lot of conditions that occur around like getting to healthy means that we have the potential of looping back into unhealthy and starting the loop all over again. You're the first person to show this as a loop. And that's super interesting because it also forces us to consider like, oh yeah, we're not working towards a fixed end here. We're working towards an inherent flexibility of the system, and it's incumbent upon us to think about it with that framework as we move forward. You're going to get a lot different ways of looking to solve problems if it's not like, hey, let's buy new furniture, assuming nothing's going to change, as opposed to everything needs to be on wheels because we need to push it away from each other. And that totally changes like how you're thinking from a spatial perspective as we think of technology. Like, simple arrow that loops it back in, but it totally gets the mind thinking of like, oh yeah, there's a lot of things that could change in the future. Snaps, props to you for putting that in. I think your icons could be a little more like, so there's things in it, but I do want to just kind of really acknowledge that you did something really nice there. I'm sure it comes up elsewhere, but that's the first one I saw, so that's cool. Does anybody else have a thought or comment on this, or shall we keep bopping around? I don't know that we necessarily, I mean, if we want to get to everyone's, it looks like we'll have the time to do that. So
I think we're actually scheduled for wrap around 45. So maybe we can do one more if you guys want, or
thank you, Jessica.
Final victim.
Let's do, let's just do one more. All right, perfect, you're choosing, this is good. And then let's do a little kind of wrap up. This is nice. Yeah, your phase. Okay, so I think what's interesting is that the phasing, the sequencing is probably the most important element because it's the only like time-based element, and it gives us a framework to kind of think laterally through the process. And I'm seeing this a couple times, but it's a really nice way of grounding it all, right? Like this stuff happens. And like the one we just saw before, you could so easily put a little arrow that leads back with like a mask on there, and it radically reshifts it. But in doing this, we all are also kind of focusing the eye on these individual chunks, and we don't have to think of it as a whole, but we can think of it as these kind of discrete elements that then eventually get built up into a kind of a comprehensive plan. This is probably what I would have more gone to in my own. By no means the right way or like ideal, but I think this is really nice. And it seems like to me, it's a nice mix of targeted language with icons that support it, right? So you can move through it pretty quickly. You can tell your story. This also could probably live on its own to a high degree. Yeah, nice. All right, so we are at 1:43. We have 2 minutes. I was talking with Tess and Pervo. My company works on kind of lean project management, which means we do a plus delta at the end of our meetings. Like, what was good? What would you do better next time? I don't know that we really have time for that. How are you all feeling? I mean, I'm not going to do this again, so I don't know that like there's going to be a lot of utility and feedback, but I've had a lot of fun. I'm super excited to see your work coming out. Maybe I'll just leave you with this. You're all going to do great. You're going to go get great jobs. You're all super smart. You are motivated. You're talented. You come from a community that is looking to look after each other. You're in the right part of the world to do the work that you want to do. You will all do great. I'm super proud of you. Go do great. Let's leave it there.
That was awesome. That reminds me of like the Michelle Obama clip that's like, you did it again, queen. But it's Aaron telling us that we're going to be amazing.
I'm just going to like throw like warm fuzzies to you all. It'll be stressful, but stress just makes you stronger, and you'll come out the other side and you'll say like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Even though it felt terrible at the time, you'll be great. I promise you, you will all go forth and kick ass. So thank you so much.
Perfect way to end this, actually.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Awesome. So let's call it. Let's just end on a high note. I love you all.
Thank you so much, Erin.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that was wonderful. For everyone, we yes have a recording. Yes, we'll share the Figma board. Yes, we'll share the deck.
And the playlist.
And the playlist, if Erin so permits.
Yep.
We'll throw that in too. And actually, it would be great, and maybe we can just throw this in like cohort 5 or basement if people want to throw, like JPEGs of their background sketches, or not on the ones that we'll grab, but if you want to throw your background sketch on Slack or something, that could be really fun to see too, for everyone who wasn't able to make it today. We do, for Bridging the Gap, have likely a break week next week, and the alumni team will follow up on if we use that time to get some feedback from you guys and figure out how the rest of the series could be improved. But otherwise, week after next, we have some really good stuff coming up. And thank you guys so much for coming as usual. This was a great one.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Last one to Maxine. Thank you. You guys are doing awesome.